Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to the Team Tuesday this week with Erik de Bos. Hey Erik, welcome back.
Hey, hi Vasco, nice to be here again.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to have you here. We had a very inspiring story. If you haven't heard it before, do listen to yesterday's episode. It's an amazing story by Erik. And today we're going to talk about teams. And yesterday's story was also about how the team helped. But before we dive into that, what was the book that most inspired you in your career as a Scrum Master, Erik?
Yeah, that's an easy one. For me, it was Humanocracy. I even wrote an article about it. And Humanocracy, it's a book which really opened my eyes to the problem we're trying to solve with Agile. The amazing thing is the book, it doesn't actually mention Agile anywhere. Okay, I think it's referenced twice as an example, but it's got nothing to do with the context of the book. And still, it builds such a powerful case for Agile in a way that I haven't found elsewhere. And I think that is the key, isn't it? I think it's one of the biggest problems we have in Agile, that Agile is a solution. But what we learn as Agile is that solutions only work if there's ownership of the solutions. Yeah, and that is a crucial problem that Agilists, even you and me, we are kind of evangelists, as in the sense that we're constantly trying to tell people to adopt the solution, and it makes us into preachers. And basically, what I learned from this book is to understand the problem we're trying to solve, and that is such a fundamentally different approach that you don't talk about the solution, but about the problem. And when you read the book, basically you're learning about the problems, and all the things you learn from Agile, they're obvious. They just come to mind, and it just connects the two.
Absolutely. Humanocracy, I think we'll put the link in the show notes so that everybody can definitely find it easily and read it through. I think the aspect of understanding what is the problem that we are trying to solve with Agile, I think that's a very important perspective, because as we've very often talked about here on the podcast, Agile is not the end goal.
Yeah.
Agile is just the stepping stone, the set of mental models, the tools, the frameworks that we can use to get to the end goal. So definitely great recommendation. Thank you for that, Erik.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So now we talk about teams and how sometimes they become their own worst enemy. Now, we're all familiar with this kind of behaviors that sometimes develop and they kind of just take a life of their own and kind of take over the team. And we want to study those so that we are ready. We can identify the signs as soon as they start showing up. So tell us that story, Erik, and start from the beginning so that we may understand all of the small nuances that were kind of hinting but not really telling you what was going on that you discovered later.
Yeah. Well, this is a story about a team in a relatively big organization. It's a team I worked with for about a year, and I actually joined them after 3 or 4 years. But of course, in the time I spent with them, I learned a lot about their history. And basically, it was a team that had started under huge pressure to build a very important application within the organization. And they'd gone through all kinds of changes and challenges and different versions of Scrum and Agile reorganizations and everything under continuous pressure. And by the time I joined them, it was just like everything was going wrong. It was one big mess. So it's just about any anti-pattern you can think of.
Give us an example.
Yeah, they were overworked. They had too much work, and they had way too many problems, and they were basically.
And they were too busy to even look at what problems we have to solve them.
Exactly. So the focus was a challenge. They couldn't even start thinking about fixing all the problems they had because of all the pressure. So they're basically running in circles, chasing their own tails.
So it's like, it's this idea of being so focused on delivery that they forget to prepare the delivery. So they are always late because there's yet another problem they don't have time to resolve that is making the delivery late.
Yeah. And then coupled to that, there was absolutely no trust. So they had been through so much troubling times that the trust was just gone. You had
the trust of the team in the stakeholders, between themselves,
all aspects. They didn't trust each other. They didn't trust the management. There was even one guy who, during one of our one-on-one meetings, he actually told me that that he thought I was a spy for management. Imagine.
Yeah, and of course that's pretty natural if you don't trust management, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You start to see hints that management wants something bad in everything if you don't know and you don't trust management and you don't know why they are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the result is there was I think like half the team, a little bit less were veterans, and they had set themselves up as to be indispensable. So everybody was really respectful of them because they were afraid they were going to quit, and then everything would fall apart. And they each had their own little kingdom, and we had juniors and new guys, and they literally didn't have anything to do, even though we had so much work, because the veterans, they wouldn't give them the knowledge because they wanted to keep it all for themselves. So you can imagine how frustrating that was.
So this sounds more like a collection of many anti-patterns, right? Like, so the most obvious is being so focused on delivery that you end up not worrying about how you work as a team and how you develop as a team. That's a problem that, just grows over time.
Yeah.
The other that you mentioned is this need to keep my little corner only for myself, which means like not only don't I trust you, but I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. So
exactly.
I'm going to make sure I'll write myself a spaghetti castle here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how did you look at it then as a Scrum Master? What were the things that you tried to do to help this team?
Yeah, well, I tried lots of things. I had quite a bit of experience by then. So I tried making the atmosphere more positive. I did all kinds of workshops. I tried to help them with the problems, offer solutions. Yeah, I spent 6 months trying to win their trust, and it was just I didn't get anywhere with them. Yeah, so it wasn't really a team. It was a group of people. I mean, it was 18 people. So eventually, I mean, as a Scrum Master, I have experience. I have the necessary understanding to create a bit of like a model of what's going on in a team. So I had a relatively good idea of what was going wrong, and I tried a couple of very interesting initiatives. Like I created a sub team, a small team of 4 people, and we got quite a bit of independence, and we got a very clear purpose. We're going to fix tech debt, technical debt, and we worked for about 3 months, and this was like a great team. In those 3 months, they actually became a proper Scrum team, and I was actually very. I had the hope that this would become a seed for the rest of the team to follow, but eventually the team got dismantled. It's almost like the people around, even in management, they were a bit scared of the fact that it was working so well. It's like, oh, this is not good.
This of course points to other anti-patterns in the organization. But actually, when you said that about sub-team, one of the things that comes to mind is that sometimes teams get into such a spiral that the only way to get out of it is to actually stop the team from existing, right? Like, break it apart, separate people into other existing teams, or even separate that team into multiple teams.
Yeah.
The smaller, the better at that point, because you have a much higher chance of influencing the atmosphere and the behaviors in smaller teams than you have in big teams. The other anti-pattern, of course, is an 18-person team is not really a team. It's at least 2 teams according to Scrum rules,
exactly.
right? 7 plus minus 2.
Yeah. So I mean, I could keep going for like next 20 minutes telling you all kinds of examples what went wrong with this team. But the bottom line is, after about 8 months, I just told management, I'm through. I gave them like a document with my analysis and some recommendations, and that just moved on to another team. Fortunately, I had a good manager who respected that. And for me, it was really good because, of course, even though you can rationally think about what happened and for you it's clear it's not your fault, it still feels like a failure. You know what I mean? It's if you're continuously asking yourself, what could have done better? Did they fail me, or is it a failure of the organization?
And the other perspective that I would like to suggest is that it's nobody's failure. It is what happened, and the important thing is to understand that some things cannot be resolved.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, we just need to move on.
Yeah, and eventually, what you suggested is exactly what happened. It was also the recommendation I'd made. Get a couple of people and place them somewhere else, and just split the team in two and let them start over. Well, eventually, one of the more difficult people, he left because got a different job, and another person, he got a promotion, and then suddenly within a couple of weeks, the whole situation changed and they started flourishing, and for me it was like, oh, that's it. It is really that way. There's sometimes even I mean with agility, with the whole agile approach, we are always very much focused on self-organization, and especially organizations where there is a proper agile understanding. Management has they tend to stay off the team, and I think that was actually part of the problem, and it actually led me to think about the fact that I think my conclusion was that you can't have self-organization without accountability, and that it's a balance, and even with all the idealism we have, sometimes indeed you have to make a tough decision as a manager, and indeed just say, okay, this is game over.
Yeah, and I think that the what you said, like, it had been going on for a few months. Like, when that happens, right? When you say to yourself, this has been going on for a few months, at that time it's time to reassess. Maybe it's not at that time that you start making big changes, but at that time you need to at least ask, what's going to be the big change I'm going to try if this doesn't work, right? Like, and that's the thing, is being an idealist does not mean that we don't pay attention to what is happening right now.
Yeah.
And consider worst case scenarios.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because they can happen.
Yeah. You have to be very pragmatic. I think that was. I mean, I'm very pragmatic myself, and one of my main goals in my career as a Scrum Master has been to become more of an idealist, to really believe in the goodness of people, and that you have to trust them. But for me personally, I also learned that as a Scrum Master, you also have to take care of yourself. I mean, I almost had a burnout because of this team. I should have gone to management a lot earlier, and then just told them, like, this is what I see, this is what's going to happen, and whether either gonna you guys have to help me, otherwise it's going to blow up, and I'm going to just go with them.
Absolutely, it's a great story and a great warning and call to action for Scrum Masters out there. Thank you very much for that, Erik.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.